My name is Tamás Balog. I'm the founder and CEO of KYBERX, also a cybersecurity professional with 15 plus years of experience. This is our agenda today. I really appreciate you guys joining. I hope it will be useful. And in our agenda, we will quickly go through KYBERX introduction. We'll keep it super brief. And then we jump into the building blocks for NIS2 compliance. And then I will show a couple of tools, again, very quickly, just so you can see what else is out there, how else you can tackle all that you're working on. And then we will close with a live Q&A, and we'll provide you with the handouts. So let's get started. KYBERX is about cybersecurity consultancy. We are based in Latvia, and we have growing businesses, build cyber smart teams and automate compliance using practical support and proven platforms. So we always are on the lookout for the best in breed solutions that are also affordable. We provide free service tiers. User awareness is our number one primary tier. There we provide solutions, whether you already have a program and you just want to see if it's working well, and then we can do something called a pulse check to check for gaps, help you with the remediation if you want. That would be course correct, and then culture sync if the program itself is more or less working, but you have a concern perhaps that the policies and the ways of working within the organization are not all in sync. So then we come in, look at the documentation without removing any important guidance from them, and try to marry it up with how the stuff actually works. And of course, we can do greenfield, so to speak. So we can bring you a platform, just the platform itself if you want, just the training. We can do fully managed awareness program with the monthly cyber awareness packs included, as well as quarterly, sort of like CISO briefings, and weekly and monthly activities to help the program land better. And Cyber Escape Room Online is also something we are very proud to provide. Those are fun for team building and sort of hackathon type activities. Service tier number 2 is compliance. Bread and butter essentially in this space is to help you improve your workflows and automate what's there, help you save resources, time, and the resources could also include financial, so money. We can deliver you a program, set it up, and walk away. We can help you do framework alignment with or without our platform, no problem, or identify or translate any compliance or regulatory requirements into controls and help you implement those, or a fully managed ISMS. So it's up to the customer's choice. And then in Advantage, it depends if it's applicable to the organization or not, but essentially you can join the two. So you get the awareness piece, the compliance piece, and then on top of that, the third cybersecurity strategy establishment, and then guiding the implementation or full-on outsourced cybersecurity manager services, or VCISO. That was about KYBERX. Here are our contacts. You already have access to details, so anyways, they are there. And then we jump into the 7 building blocks of NIS2 compliance. Now, I am very happy for you to take screenshots. We will share with you anyways everything we provide, so we're not holding nothing back. So yeah, just take screenshots as you please. It's important to note that we cannot squeeze into like 20-30 minutes everything that you need to do, but we did our best to give you an overall unlocking nature of information. So every step and every block unlocks the next. And then we, in the handout, you'll see that you will get a 50 plus steps checklist that you can just take and implement. So you start with a status check, leadership being established, baselining the environment. Then you move on to putting in some quick wins, quick fixes, preparing for incidents, So incident readiness, supply chain or third-party provider security. And then at this point, now you should have more time to spend on additional controls that otherwise perhaps was just too much to comprehend all in a very short time. And then the continuous improvement, which is the soul of every effective compliance program, and in general, managing cyber risks and cyber security. An example timeline is that somehow during the conversion, it got messed up a little bit with the positions. Apologies. It was supposed to be aligned properly. So it depends really on the organization, the ways of working. If you can tackle more things in parallel, then of course it's shorter. If the organization otherwise is in a better shape, it's shorter. Or if it's a smaller team, then again it can be shorter. So there are many ways how this can be sped up, but 12 months is what you see on the screen at the moment as an example. Block number 1. Now we go into a bit more detail. So you can do a self-assessment, and you should do, regardless of the type of your organization, in my opinion. In fact, the government department responsible for this would welcome all the information they can gather. But essentially there are 2 ways how you can do self-assessment. There is an online test, which is not officially a self-assessment, but it can give you an idea if you are in scope or not. We will share the link, no problem. But then there is also contact details that we will provide. You may already be familiar with them. You may already have done this, but I will talk through anyways. And if you contact them, they will give you a form that you can then complete. It's pretty straightforward, so I wouldn't say you necessarily need to go outside if you don't have an internal cybersecurity leadership just yet. But that's the next step, is for you to get senior leadership buy-in. They are ultimately accountable. So that's new in NIS2 compared to the original NIS. So that's important for them to be aware of, and the cybersecurity manager, in whatever shape or form I want to say, but the person who will hold this role, whether it's one of many hats that they will wear or the sole responsibility, they should be given resources, time, and it cannot be just on paper. Otherwise it will not work. So it will help nobody if it's just a paper appointment, and otherwise they don't focus on it, or they are not given the opportunity and the chance to properly handle cybersecurity within the organization. For those who are a little bit more further ahead, then you can start defining roles and responsibilities within your organization. Now, I know it's light, say these 3 steps. Don't worry, you'll get a lot more in the handout, but I also thought that we should not try to overwhelm you with everything in one session. So a good outcome of this building block would be is that when the person who is responsible for cybersecurity within the organization, at any given time when they are prompted, they can recite the top 3 or 4 risks that the company is focusing on at the time, how they are focusing on it, and so on. An excellent outcome would be is that if over time the cybersecurity function is so embedded in the organization's senior leadership that everyone in the senior leadership can recite those, and they are aware, and they are constantly being updated on the state. Building block 2, baseline your environment. What we are looking for here is something that sounds very simple on paper and may be even not too complicated in many organizations, but it can be a difficult task if it's the first time you're working on them, and they will absolutely determine the success of your program. And that is, number 1 is an asset inventory. An asset technically includes data, and data in most cases is the most important asset or the most critical asset any organization can have. And then assets can include anything, hardware, software, but even intangible things like brand reputation, customer list, branding, things like that. There is something that you probably are not aware of. You will get a form to use on how a mini risk assessment looks like. and how you can then use it to establish an initial risk register. But I will quickly try and show you. So essentially, you identify your top assets and processes and the data they rely on. That goes in column 1. That part comes from the business. So you need to include all the departments in this identification, but it should be quick. And then for each of those, you look at the various threats that would have the highest likelihood of occurring. And that part comes from the security department, working with IT as well. And then once you have that, so you will have a bunch of entries in both columns now, you will look at the vulnerabilities with the highest impact that would allow these threats to materialize. And that is it. You will end up with many items here. I would say minimum 10. But what you want to do is then you want to put them in order. And that should be also very simple. So you ask for the first one. Is it more critical as an asset than asset number 2? And then you do the same with threats for those items. Is this threat with the highest likelihood really than the other one? Yes or no? And you quickly order this. And then once you've done that, you will end up with a list that should now be prioritized. Don't worry about it not being quantified. This is qualitative, I agree. But at this point, you should have, at least on a qualitative basis, you should have your top risks, and you identify the top 3 or 4, just to show that you also can handle budgeting and you're not trying to boil the ocean and fix everything all at once. And those go here. And essentially, this is then your cybersecurity strategy for the next quarter. And then you update it every quarter. That's how it happens. Now, it's important that everything that doesn't make it in this list, as in top 7, you have 7 here in total, everything that doesn't make the list goes into, it can be just a spreadsheet, and that will be your initial risk registry. And that's what we are really talking about here. So something very quick and simple. And then you do the quantitative analysis for these top ones. And then you constantly update the risk register as well. And there you go. In like 2 weeks, you would have done that. Otherwise, especially if you include external consultants, would take months. And by the time you finish, the big power of this is that this is so quick that you're working on what really matters right now, and you're working on it now, as opposed to spending months with trying to identify risks, and then by the time you get there, it's outdated. I know there are ways to avoid it getting outdated, but this is just quick, effective, and you still get to do the quantitative analysis for these top ones, and then the rest is your backlog. I think we covered everything here. There are, again, bonus steps for those who are in a more advanced state. So you also work towards identifying the regulatory scope. But again, you start here. This unlocks everything that's in here. And then once you've done this slide, that unlocks the next page. That's the logic, the idea. You also need to document existing security policies and controls. You also should clean them up. So anything ineffective should be cancelled or replaced, or made effective. If it's your information security policy and you don't want to start with scratch, make sure you update it so it is workable. And it's important for policies. It's often another pitfall. They are too long, too complicated. No one reads them, no one can remember them, and no one knows how to follow them. So a good policy should be 3 to 4 pages, and it should be super clear. So when you drive or traveling in a vehicle, if you don't drive, you see these road signs, the speed limit, very clear. And that's how good policy should be. So when people read it and acknowledge it, they also can remember it, they can then apply it, and if you ask them, they know what is expected from them, and that's super important. And then it's important to set out some KPIs for your whole program, so that you can measure success. What you don't measure, you don't control. I think saying something like that. So let's move on to the next one, if it works. Block number 3. Quick wins, policies, awareness-based fixes. So now we start getting into actually doing some technical work. So you roll out your updated policies here. But of course, first you need to identify what you already have. And then we call it the 5 non-negotiables that you enable also user awareness training. So user awareness training is pretty straightforward. I would imagine everyone is familiar with that. So that's an important requirement in the new legislation. But forget about the regulations and law and everything. It's one of the most effective ways to improve overall resiliency within the business. Just to oversimplify it, the business is more secure. So there are so many solutions out there. Yes, we offer, but yeah, I mean, you can even do it in-house, so you don't have to spend money on it. I don't know your situation with budgets and things like that. Now, the 5 non-negotiables, you're looking to put in place something that will instantly make your business more resilient, but it also can be applied in a day, in a week, in 2 weeks, something super quick. So, and I'm going to say some pretty big words, but I will explain how you do that very fast. So, asset management, change management, patch management, multi-factor authentication, very important, and backups. So you have to do all these 5 things for your organization's assets. Now we are talking about computers, yes, and not just computers, but also any hardware, software component. You have 1,000 endpoints, desktops, servers, network devices, and everything. You can't do that. Yes, you cannot. I agree, unless you have an army of IT and security teams working on just this. But what you can do is to establish some sort of priority. That's why that updated asset inventory was very important. Now it's going to play a very important role. You pick the assets that are public facing, have access to critical data, and you come up with a number. You may not be able to handle 1,000 assets, but can you handle 20? And if the answer is yes, and that's just a number, you come up with yours. If it's 5, it's 5. But you do that for 20, and it's 100% coverage. We don't do 90% of everything. For these 5 non-negotiables, it's 100% for those 20. When that's done, you move on to the next 20, and then the next 20, and then the next 20. There are other non-negotiable rules you can put in place. We didn't include them here, but just to give you as much value as I can, I will mention them. So the things like public-facing assets, so no critical data is in public-facing assets. Public-facing assets can only access critical data through a proxy, so through an intermediate or middleware layer, or not at all. And everything public-facing is multi-factor authentication. And then on top of that, you also do not allow remote access to critical data. All of these are easier said than done, I know, but just wanted to give you as much ideas as possible to improve security. You will have access to the recording, don't worry. I know we're going fast, even though there are not that many words on the screen. Once you are done with these, bonus steps again, an up-to-date network diagram and network visibility map. They are not the same. The network diagram is something you build internally, how you see the organization. This should be 100% accurate. The network visibility map is something you look at from outside. So, okay, this is a network diagram. What is visible outside? Because believe it or not, it has happened that organizations thought that this is our network, this is how it works, that's where the data is, and that's the data that is accessible to the internet, and so on and so on. But then a breach occurred, and somehow the information was discovered that this kind of network visibility map existed in the hands of the attackers, of the criminals. They built it, and theirs was more accurate than the organization's own view of what they had. So it's super important. If you are considering pen testing, I would say this is a good start. Until these things are done, I would say a pen test, you're going to waste some money there, no matter how well it's done. If they can include it, that's fine. Then they'll go ahead. But that's just my opinion, so you decide. And then, of course, you build a business continuity and disaster recovery plan as well. Again, first you execute those high-impact 2 steps, and then that unlocks the next ones, and then the next slide. So next slide, block number 4, incident readiness. It is simple, again, in words. It will take some effort. You develop an incident response plan. Simulated attacks are awesome, but you can start with some tabletop exercises. The department leads to get together and have an appreciation together what the risks are and how the organization should be and can be protected. Move on to a crisis management plan, which is also should handle how you communicate when something bad happens to the outside world. Supply chain security, essentially all your vendors, even customers, partners, you need to have an understanding of what's the list, who they are, what they have access to, including network access and data. There are other ways how you can do this. There are solutions out there that help automate. It's not a sales pitch, but in the handout you will have access to a link that is free for up to 5 partners of yours. Do it manually, SharePoint or something like that, or you build some form of an automation with other tools, or you can use a compliance automation platform that can help you manage that. It's also important to have a clear idea of what you expect them to do, and then what you want to mandate out of that expectation. Some things may be just a wish list, but some things will be core requirements. And then those core requirements absolutely need to make it to the questionnaires, and then ideally should be monitored on a continuous basis. And eventually, you should start putting them into your contracts as well. Network segmentation and segregation are important, and monitoring. So whether that is layer 2, layer 3, from a routing, how one thing can get to another point of view, that is important. Having firewalls between critical buckets of assets, that's also super important. Not just firewall, but also some sort of an intrusion prevention and monitoring system that looks for malicious packets and activities and can also hopefully automatically stop them, or at least restrict their chance for success. Infrastructure monitoring and security monitoring as well. Anything web-facing should have some form of a denial of service prevention or protection solution. Web application firewalls are very important. And even like home broadbands can do this. If you have a lot of like remote workers who are not really remote workers or working from home anymore, but those are your remote offices. Whether you like it or not, that's how it is if they have access to your network somehow, or data. SOC for security operations, or cyber risk operations as well, that is more proactive. Security Operations Center normally is more reactive, but Cyber Risk Operations Center is proactive, so looks at risk mitigation overall, holistically across the organization. And then what they use is EDR, XDR, SIEM, and all the other fantastic tools. And you also should enable some form of band protection for your users or for your systems, whether it is URL filtering or CertAvis, DNS firewall. If you have LMT, it's not advertisement, but if you have LMT, they have it integrated into their solution. Assessments, so vulnerability scanning, pen test, attack surface management, breach and attack simulation. It gets really fun for those tech-inclined people. And block 7, the ongoing improvement and proof. So you're keeping evidence, but first and foremost, you review your KPIs and policies. That should happen at least yearly, and ensure that everything is still in a good shape and you're still focusing on what matters most in protecting the business. Compliance automation. What's driving the need? So you have to do all this, and this is just NIS2, for example, but I mean, you can apply the steps for other compliance or regulations. And then there is GDPR, ISO 27001, PCI, and all the others. So it's very easy to get overwhelmed by all the often shared requirements, but sometimes even somewhat conflicting. That's a big challenge with the old way. Manual activities, well, they are of course prone to errors more than automated systems, but also take more effort from the entire organization. And it doesn't matter if you bring in someone who is more experienced, like dependency on external consultants often and experts, or even in-house. Manual just takes more work. Everyone, I think, would agree with that. But what also this could mean is that you're not always working on what matters the most. So sometimes wasted or not optimally spent resources can occur. Now that is expenditure in euros listed. It can be less, it can be more. But what we are trying to say here is the resources are not optimally used because there is not a clear way how to handle the various dependencies, the various requirements, often in parallel with all the other day-to-day activities. So this is just one piece of the business, yeah? And then there are all the other things that needs to happen, and different priorities exist. So what compliance automation does, it's supposed to be helping you automate the workflows, so you spend less effort, less money, and your accuracy increases as well. So it's very easy now for you to scale, regardless the company is growing, regardless if you are acquiring or selling businesses. It's very easy now, very easy to navigate those changes. New regulation comes in, or a new business goal is set out. So again, it's just modernizing and improving the efficiency of all of that. And then vendor risk management is automated as well. Not only automated from a technology point of view, so of course there can be API-based checks done, integrations with various tools, technologies you have, or the partners or customers or vendors have, but also the questionnaires can be automated, sharing documentation, security assurance. It's twofold. One is it's easier for you to now get audited because you can prepare a view for them that's constantly updated. So the auditor always has what they need, and it is kept up to date. And then you can also use something that's being referred to as Trust Center, that you can, after signing an NDA, for example, you can give access to that section of the solution to your customers, and then they can find everything there that they need to trust you and to continue working with you. So that's the idea here. Now, I will put this here whilst I'll quickly give you some handouts. You waited long enough. And just to open this document quickly, I can share the Word document version if you want to be ticking the boxes digitally. But essentially, this is the lightweight version that you saw. And then here you have the detailed one. This should satisfy your needs. And then unless you have something like vehicles or OT, IoT specific additional needs, then yeah, maybe you need to add certain things, but the concepts are the same. You just might need to do them in multiple steps. And then we talked about the mini risk assessment template, and this is fun. If you're always struggling to, okay, so we need to fix two things, confidentiality, integrity, availability, which one? So what am I spending money on first? If you don't have all the money in the world to spend on everything, then what you do is first, for the business you identify, for this you need to know what business you are really in. I'm sure you heard that in many different settings in your career, but what business you're really in, and based on that, which one? So confidentiality is, let's say, 60%, integrity is 30%, and we don't really care that much about availability, that's 10%. So you do that, and it doesn't have to be down to the most accurate numbers you can think of. It just has to be accepted and understood across the organization so you can use it. And then you can do the same thing for individual processes and assets. And that's where the fun really begins. So you always have this already pre-agreed within the business, and you're constantly updating it. And when there is a question, okay, we have two things to do, which one, we don't have money for both. This can save the day. Honestly, it seems very silly, but try it. Try it sort of unofficially and not let it drive decisions first if you don't want to. See, it's really, really helpful and fun. And then the resources, so a bunch of resources for NIS2 and KDL and other things. And then free tools, so the DNS firewall, I'm sure you are aware. It's a very great initiative or solution by CertaV. I don't know if you know, but there is a free version of Qualys, believe it or not. It has limitations, how many assets, but for smaller environments, it works well. Security scorecard I mentioned, so that helps you monitor third parties, up to 5 third parties you can invite into your environment. After that, yeah, you have to pay, but at least for 5 you can use it. DDoS protection, so Cloudflare, free, and even the paid versions are pretty reasonably priced. And then there is some limited version of, well, not that limited. It's very useful, but you cannot use all the features. So you cannot do dark web monitoring, but SOC Radar is a great threat intelligence solution. They offer a free account. I recommend you at least check these out, try them out. You can then always just delete it. At least you are aware of them. We're not selling these, so I just really wanted to give you some useful tips for some of the elements. But if you do need help setting them up, yeah, give me a shout or send us a message and someone will some directions. Most of them are super quick and super easy. And yes, so follow us on social media, please. We share a lot of free content. And if you have any questions, we are very eager to speak with you. You can book a free consultancy. It's truly free consultancy. So we're not going to try to sell you stuff. We might make an offer, but we will prioritize giving you an answer and giving you a way forward. I don't know exactly the phrase, but there is an old children's story, which is not only for children. It's about a child, a boy, doesn't know how he's going to get to his destination, and he's got a horse, and the horse says, "Can you see the next step?" And the boy says, "Yes." "Okay, just take that one." So we'll help you do that in this consultation, and no charge. We are very happy to help anybody who is reaching out. We want to be useful. And sorry for overrunning. Thank you for your attention, patience, for your time, and wish you a wonderful day. And I think everyone is from Latvia, so paldies. Thank you. Bye.